Hello everyone, welcome back to game development tutorial with me, Tom, and today will be episode 3.5. So what I want to do this episode is nothing new. We're not going to write anything that we haven't done already. We are just going to move all of the things we did last episode with the rendering over to the engine. That's why 3.5. Episode 4 will be about shaders, like I talked about before, but I wanted to do all of this moving in episode 4 too, but that's going to take a little bit too much time, so that's why I decided to make like a 3.5 one. So if you don't care about refactoring stuff and putting it somewhere else, then this is not the video for you, but if you're interested, then please keep on watching. So what I want to do is I want to go to the engine and I want to create 2 new classes. Right, so I want to make a vertex array class so that we can make vertex array objects, and I want to make, where's new? Oh, okay. And I want to make a renderer class. There we go. First off, I will do this one, vertex array. Now we are going to need a few methods in here. I want to make a constructor internal. That means that I cannot construct a vertex array from my game. I will have to do it from somewhere within my engine. So I have to call a function that will ideally see if the current thread has a window, and then it will return a vertex array for that window. So in that case you wouldn't accidentally do all sorts of OpenGL stuff without an OpenGL context, which would be a problem. So well, that's why. But we're not doing that today actually, because we are not going to write anything that we haven't really done before. Anyway, we'll need something to put vertices inside of this vertex array. We need something to put in other types of data like colors or lighting. We need something to put in indices, and let's see, we need something to combine everything. I will just call that public pool init. And let's see, what else do we need? We need something that actually renders the vertex array. But again, I don't want to call a render function directly from my my game, so we're going to make this internal. So it's render. And then I will need a struct vertex data that can store a bunch, well, 2 bits of data. That's because we are going to have to store some information about the extra data. Like for vertices, we kind of know what that type of data is going to look like, but data, vertex data, that's more ambiguous. You could pretty much put anything in there, so that's why we need a little bit more information there. It will become more apparent in a little bit. So we will need the buffer and the size, so the amount of floats pretty much per vertex. That's the information that we will need. And then make still constructor that just takes in a buffer. Oh, takes in a size. Distance buffer equals buffer. Distance size equals size. There we go. Oh, has 3 vertex data. Right. Now, what we will need to do is we will also need to put in some variables up here. So for our vertex array, we will need to know in what dimensions we're working. So we can work in 2 or 3 dimensions, pretty much. 2 or 3D. Alright, we will also need an integer that represents the vertex array object. Well, just write it like this. We will also need one that represents the vertex buffer object and one that represents the index buffer object. They're all pretty much the same. Then we need a private integer, something that keeps track of how many vertices have to be drawn. And then we will need, lastly, something that keeps track of all the vertex data that we put in here. So we'll need a list so that we can put as much vertex data as we want. And then call that data. Alright. Now, all these things, just going to initialize to 0. This thing, just going to initialize that to 0. Dimension. Well, the dimension would have to be decided upon when creating the vertex array. So I might as well just ask that here, and then just do dim equals dim. Right. And this is an object, and I like to initialize my objects inside the constructor. You don't have to do that, you can just put new list something over here. But I don't like that, I prefer to do that here. Just put that all in. There we go. Now, let me see. What else do I want to do? Alright, so put vertices. Let's just go down now. So the only thing we really need to know about vertices is the actual data itself. Because we already know the amount of dimensions that we're working with. And we already know, well, no, that's actually everything we need to know. So, what we'll check for first, whether or not vertices.length is smaller than 6. Because if we look back at our class here, we had 6 vertices for a simple 2-dimensional triangle. If we have any less vertices, then we cannot possibly draw a triangle. And so this shouldn't work then. There we go. Sure, you might want to draw lines, but we're going to do that later. We just want to draw triangles now, so that's an important. Then we are going to do, oh wait, yes, I should import OpenGL, OpenTK.graphics.OpenGL. Right, so this is going to gl.gen buffer. Right, now this can return 0 if something went wrong. So if VBO double equals 0 still, then return false. Right? Okay. And then we just need to start copy pasting. So this was what we did at the vertex array. Yes. These 2 lines we need. You know what? I might as well just remove them. Right, so we already put that in here now. And then after that, of course, we can return true. Right, so we discussed this and what it does last episode. It's gonna do the exact same thing here. But we have not yet created a vertex array object, and we have, well, that's why we can't combine the buffer data with the vertex array object, which we do here. This part is gonna go into the init part. That's because we can just upload vertices and then wait a little bit. And well, maybe I should actually also check whether or not VBO is already 0. Because of course if VBO is is not already 0, right, then we already put in vertices. So that means that we shouldn't put in new vertices. Right, but like this. Right, so we can put in vertices, then a little bit later we can put in indices, maybe a little bit later we can put in data. And then in the end we're finally going to combine it in init. Right. We might also actually want to have like a private bool init and then equals false. Right, so it's not yet initialized. That might be important. Alright. Now, put data. That's pretty much going to be the same as this. Almost. Well, we're also going to use data in the form of a float array, but we will also need to know how large the data is going to be. So how much data per vertex. Right, so there is no reason to check any of this, because data can be whatever it likes to be. And then I will need int. How am I going to call this? Vertex or a data buffer object? Why not? Right. And again, this is true if it's 0, so if something failed here, then just return. Now, here, buffer object. Then here we will have to do data.length, size of float, and in here put in data. Right, that works. However, we do need to put everything in the list now. So we can do data.add and then a new vertex data with the buffer, dbo, and then the size. There we go. We will need the size later, so that's why we need to store it. Okay, put indices. Again, going to be something similar to this, except this time we're going to use integers. Indices. Now, this is important. So if the index buffer object is not 0, then return false, or else if indices is smaller than 3, because again we need at least 3 to draw a triangle. So it needs to be at least 3. And then the index buffer object is a new gen buffer. If it's 0, then it's 0. Bind it. Of course, don't forget that this has to be an element array, like we did here. It has to be an element array. Can now delete that too. Can delete this. Okay. Indices. There we go. That's it. Now in init. Let me see. So in init we need to combine everything. So what we need to do is we need to generate our vertex array objects. Equals gl.gen vertex array. Also here we should check if VAO double equals 0. If that is true, then return false. Okay, else. Otherwise we need to start doing this stuff. Right. So we need to bind the vertex array. There we need to point. So I kinda misspoke last time, or I didn't really think of this. The index here, this index, is not like a starting position from where the vertex array is going to read the buffer. That's the offset one, the very last one. The index is the index of the buffer, the index of where the buffer is going to be inside of the vertex array object. If that makes sense. So vertex array object is going to be an array with a whole bunch of all of these buffer datas in there. So if I would put in another one, then I would have to put it at index 1. If I put in another one, if I would put it another one, then I would have to put it at index 2. So don't mess that up, I guess. Otherwise it just won't work. The rest is completely fine. So this is going to be the... Oh wait, no, this is not going to be fine actually. I do need to bind the buffer too. So we're going to bind the vertex array, bind the buffer, put in the pointer, enable the vertex distributor array. Alright, so we did that. Then we need to do something very similar for all the data. So I'm just going to look through the data and I need to know the index of the data. So that's why I am going to keep track of that. I equals 0, I smaller than data dot count, I plus plus, and then inside of here I pretty much need to repeat these few steps. So I will need to bind data I dot buffer, and let me see, this needs to be then I plus 1 because I is going to be 0 at first, but this one is already 0, so that means this needs to be 1, so I plus 1. Same thing here. Again, I will explain how this works a lot better next episode, so I'm not going to tell you yet why this needs to be I plus 1 too, but this makes sense, right? So if this is already 0, then the next data has to be 1, but I obviously starts at 0, so we need to add 1, and then again and again throughout the loop. Alright, 2, well, oh yes, of course, this doesn't need to be 2, this needs to be the dimension. So if the dimension is 2, then it's just going to be 2. If we're using 3 dimensions, then dimension is going to be 3, and then this is going to be 3. So then 3 coordinates per vertex. Right. This one can be anything, so that's why we saved it under size. This is the amount of data per vertex. Right, it's going to be float, just like the other one, and then this is all good. Alright, and then at the end we can return true. Right? Oh yes, of course. I should actually clear the data here because we're not going to use the data anymore, so might as well clear it to save a little bit of memory. I think that's it. Okay, now in render, pretty much just going to put in all of this stuff. Alright. Bind vertex array, bind buffer, draw buffer. Again and again, so this is exactly as it should be, except for this one. So now we are going to draw 3 vertices, but we don't know how many vertices we want to draw, of course. So we need the index count for that one. That's the amount of indices that we're actually going to draw out. And of course, I did actually forget to put here that index count has to be just indices. Oh, that length. Right, so because we have 3 indices here, we're going to draw 3 things. Right, 1, 2, 3. Now we can make it longer, and then we would draw more things, but just need to keep track of that. And then put it, oh no, not there, in here. Right, the rest stays the same again. This should be about it. I actually think we don't even need a renderer, so we might as well just get rid of that. Renderer, goodbye, we're not going to need you. So, yes, I think that's actually, what does it want me to do? Oh, yeah, I don't care. Okay, it's fine without putting this dot in front of it. Right, so this should completely work, and it's all in a nice neat class. We just can't create a class yet. So I want to put that in here. I'm going to rename this class to TE for tut engine. Right, save it, and then I should also rename this. There we go, for tut engine, just short. And then I should put in a public static vertex array, and then something like create vertex array with an amount of dimensions, but we're going to put the default at 2. So you can just put in this. Very nice. And if you don't put in anything as parameters to this function now, then it will just use dim equals 2. If you do put in like 2 as a parameter, then it will also do dim equals 2. If you put in like 5, then it will do dim equals 5. That's just pretty much a default. Very nice. And right here I'm just going to return a new vertex array with dim. Right, so ideally I would like to check first if there is an OpenGL context on this thread, but not today, because that would be very new code that we would need to discuss in more detail, I think. So not yet, if that's even possible. I don't even know if that's possible, but probably. Right, it's probably possible, since it's very nice and it would definitely help, so it's probably there. Alright, let's get rid of the last of it. I think that's it. So now what I can do is I can say a private vertex array VAO, and here I can say VAO equals DE dot create vertex array. Not going to put in anything, so it will use 2 as a default. That's great. Oh, that's put vertices. Just going to put the vertices in here. Oh, that's put indices. I'm just going to put the indices in there. And then I need to initialize it. And then here I can do. Oh yes, of course, I made this internal. I'm not going to make the render function actually internal. Like, I had something else in mind. I wanted to do something with the renderer, but never mind that. Let's just do it like this. Dot render. There we go. Of course, I should actually check if initialized do all of this stuff, and else don't do that. And then here I should also do initialized equals true. Right. Right, and then maybe I should also quickly add something like public void delete. And what it should do then is it should say initialized equals false, of course, and then gl.delete buffer vertex buffer object should delete the index. Well, it should actually only delete the index buffer object. Maybe I should put this already in here. No, in the init one. Yes. So after this, it should also delete vertex buffer object. And in here, after that, it should also delete this buffer. Yes. Because that stuff just gets copied into the vertex array object, so then the buffer that remains is completely useless. Might as well just delete it right away. But we do need to delete the index buffer object. We also need to delete the vertex array itself. Okay, and then put initialize to false. Right, so then, well, I shouldn't put that anywhere in my code actually, because there is no event yet registered that will fire when the window is closed. I guess I should add that sometime soon, but not today. Right, this should work. So let's just give it a spin. Nope. No, it's definitely crashed. Oh well, that's not good. Let me see. Let me see. What part crashed? It's actually kind of funny. Because why would it crash? Maybe I shouldn't delete. buffers anyway. Yeah, alright, so I shouldn't delete buffers. And this, of course, should be triangles. Right. Okay. Well, then it works. I'll just get rid of this then. Don't delete the buffers. Yeah, alright, I'll close it. Now, not entirely sure why that didn't work. Actually, I'm going to keep it there because it should work as far as I'm aware. Not entirely sure why it doesn't. Maybe because they're still bound. Maybe I could test that, but obviously I wouldn't do that on camera. So if you know why deleting the buffers makes everything just not work, let me know. But this was today's episode then, I guess. So very quick one, I hope. I hope this one hasn't been for too long. Nothing new, just a little bit of refactoring, but look at this, this is so much better. We could even do it like this, and look at that. Just 4 lines of code here, and then 1 line of code here to do everything. That's a lot cleaner. And now all the hard stuff is all inside of here. Wait, oh yes, I can actually make this read only. Yeah, great. So this was today's episode then. Episode 3.5. Next time we will do shaders. And we can finally add some color to everything. Now everything's still white, it's a bit boring, a bit bland. So I'm going to make it very colorful. We're going to talk about shaders. We're going to talk about all of this stuff. What's it called? Yes, the enable vertex attribute array. It's all going to be great. Well, so then I will see you in the next episode and have a great day.